Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the very first episode of our online video series titled The Changing Architecture of Search Marketing. I'm Suhain from the Amazon Ads team and I'll be your host for today. Before I start, let me quickly extend a thank you note to the AdTech team for putting this platform together, where we get an opportunity to listen to senior marketing thought leaders as they talk about the past, present, and future of search marketing. The last few years, digital has been at the forefront in terms of driving innovation and efficiency for advertisers. Search has always been a flag bearer of digital marketing, providing marketers an unparalleled opportunity to engage consumers based on their stated intent and track the performance of their marketing dollars at a click level. While search may not be talked about as much in recent times as compared to other digital counterparts such as video, it remains a core constituent of digital marketing and continues to drive the highest return on spend for most marketers. From a consumer perspective as well, search remains an integral part of their research and purchase journey, playing a significant role across the entire process. In fact, a study done by Amazon Ads showed that in mid to high consideration categories such as TVs, watches, and smartphones, an average buyer conducts 10 to 15 searches before making a purchase. These searches are scattered across the entire consumer journey, right from generic to feature-specific and brand-specific research. In fact, about 60 to 70% searches on Amazon are generic in nature, showing the continued role of searches as a strong influencer in the research journey of consumers. Over the recent period, consumer behavior around search has evolved in line with the overall changing consumer preferences, both in terms of how and where searches are done, as well as what is being searched. Today's discussion will focus on the evolution of search and opportunities it opens up for marketers. We will discuss the key consumer trends around searches and implication of it for all of us. To talk about this and more, let me welcome Tanushree Radhakrishnan. Tanushree currently heads the biddable practice for GroupM Media Services in India, which she helped set up in 2021. She carries nearly 2 decades of rich experience working as senior executive across leading marketing companies and agencies such as GroupM, Zenith, and Performix. During this period, she has worked with a large number of clients in identifying market opportunities, driving and accelerating business growth, helping them embrace digital and drive performance and measurability. A thought leader and a strong proponent of power of search, she has a representation across industry bodies and is a visiting faculty across premium institutes like MICA, India Today, SOIL, and FIIB. A warm welcome to you, Tanushree.
Thank you so much, Suhain, and thank you so much for having me on this series. I think, like I had mentioned to you earlier also, search is very close to my heart. I started my digital career being a search engine marketing executive. So yes, have seen the entire evolution in India for search. So really happy to be a part of this.
Great, Tanushree. So let me start with that, Tanushree. You have seen search evolve as a product over time. And given the journey search has done, it is now seen as a fairly mature digital marketing media. How do you see it shaping or growing today from a perspective of consumer as well as from a marketer perspective?
Definitely. See, when we talk of growth, I think, it's the immediate growth that comes to my mind. And, come to think of it, right? When we were to look at 2020, 2021 in the long run, while we will relate it to distress and disruption that it has caused, but I think the larger part of the conversation for us would be the kind of transformation that it has helped make for us as consumers, or the kind of aspects it has changed in our life. And when we talk about this, the piece that comes to my mind is the whole change in the adoption of digital that has happened. Now, when we speak digital, of course, search becomes an integral part of that entire journey. And what the last 2 years have done is it has really accelerated the growth for us exponentially. I would say we are probably fast forwarded to 2 or 3 years, if not more. Now, with that kind of growth, what we are seeing is that the conventional way that consumers used to interact with mediums has changed. While we would say it was more of a customary online presence that we had seen before. Now it has become more intuitive, more engaged, more, attuned towards, being a part of the entire consumer journey. And search is an integral part of that entire journey, or I would say that's a starting point for most of the consumers in that journey. And like you rightly mentioned, right, before purchasing of any product, before any kind of for any information that one seeks, I mean, that is a starting point. In fact, there have been a lot of instances when we have read that 60% of the ads influenced purchases are driven by search. So I mean, that's the kind of influence that we see that search brings on board. And also, it's also the kind of change that we see in terms of preference for consumers, because we are not living in a linear ecosystem anymore. Gone are those days when you would say that a consumer, needs to be aware, and then he gets into the consideration mode, and then he would finally purchase something. With digital being a part of the ecosystem, or the mindset, so to say, it's become more fluidic in nature. So, even if when you're not aware about a product, and just because somebody refers or recommends it to you, you end up buying it. So it's slightly more complicated in the way that it's been functioning. So yes, I mean, search is an integral part. I mean, it's seen humongous growth, especially in the last 2 years. And it's also different, I would say, in the way the urban markets have adopted to it as compared to the rural market. So it's a phenomenal growth across both the realms, I would say.
Got it. So Tanushree, let me just ask one more question around this. That you talked about the growth in search, and a large portion is obviously coming from just the growth in overall digital adoption. But is there also an increased reliance on search from consumers who are already online? Consumers who are already using search, are they increasingly depending on search across their touch points? Or do you see consumers also being a bit more cautious, or doing a lot more research before actually making a purchase? So are those trends also feeding into this overall growth of search?
So absolutely, Sohen. So, I mean, when we talk about the research piece that happens largely online. And, while we've seen different varying numbers, what we typically talk about is more than 60% of the research starts off online for any product purchase. And even when we talk about the ROPO, right, in terms of the research online purchase offline, a large part of it is driven through online research. So, I mean, there's this significant dependence on search for any kind of, consumer decision that needs to be made. And the other interesting part would be, I mean, while previously we would talk about search, it only meant the Google search or the conventional search engine ecosystem. It has now evolved from there into being a social search, a social commerce, in fact, even a marketplace. So, that's the kind of evolution that we are seeing. So there are multiple entry points for the consumer right now. It is, like I mentioned earlier, it's not a linear journey anymore, but that linearity is also lost slightly in the search ecosystem also. Conventionally, you would say you would start off researching on Google, then, you would wait for a recommendation or a referral on social, and then you would probably, land onto a marketplace to buy. Now, with the kind of evolution that's happened across marketplaces, people start searching on the marketplace itself, because they know that they will get the kind of reviews, they'll get the recommendations, the price comparisons, everything happening right then and there.
Got it. I think interesting pointers, Tanushree. I think let me go into my second question really is, what are some of the key consumer trends you have noticed when people use search, and how some of the brands responded to these trends?
Sure. So again, coming back to that whole piece, right? Consumers these days, they are using voice to order food, to get directions, to know more about things in life, right? And all of this is happening in their own vernacular language. So I would say, so the 3 V's, basically voice, vernacular, and video would be the 3 large trends that we've been monitoring across different clients or across, the consumers, so to say. And so when we look at the whole ecosystem, I would say smart voice or smart speaker has picked up significantly for us, and that's the way that consumers are really moving into, and the adoption rates are significantly large. So when we talk about voice search, we've seen an increase of over 300%. It's a similar percentage that we would say it's even on the vernacular searches that we see. And needless to say that, with the, the how-tos and the what's and the whys, definitely there's a significant skew towards videos, because, that's what helps you answer most of these questions. So yes, I would say it's vernacular, voice and video for us largely.
Got it. Couple of questions here, Tanushree. Essentially, while the 3 V's that you talked about are obviously important growth areas, between the 3, which of them are still early in their journey when it comes to search? Or do you think all 3 are now sizable enough for marketers to actually do some action on ground?
See, it would depend on the kind of category that we're talking about. Now, let's say if we were to talk about education, health, CPGs and the likes, I would say, all of them are doing pretty well. Whether it's in terms of, education clients, in terms of creating engaging content or to engage with students in their own vernacular language, or for CPG clients to reach out to the rural markets, which was not possible earlier with voice. So I think, it would be dependent on, fumbled a little too much out there, but it would be completely dependent on what genre we're talking about, and also what is the kind of module that we are using. So even within voice, right, there are different ways that consumers can possibly get targeted. So let's say in the urban ecosystem, we're talking more about let's say voice synthesis and voice assistance. But in the rural space, we're talking about the missed calls, what do you call it, those ad ring backtones and stuff, right? So these are different ways of targeting. So yes, even within the 3 V's, we would see different kinds or different rates of adoptions, which is there across different verticals of clients that we see.
Got it. And just one last question on this topic is, now coming from a marketer's perspective, how do they prepare themselves for the future of voice and vernacular very specifically? I think video is something that people still do a fair bit today, but voice and vernacular, I think these are, on Amazon, we are seeing phenomenal growth as well for both voice and vernacular. And we get a lot of questions as to, from a marketer perspective, how do I tap on this opportunity to the maximum extent? So any tips for marketers out there?
Sure. See, just like any other advertising medium, right? I think the key, even within voice and vernacular search, would be in terms of, how do you engage your customer, and how do you make yourself relevant so that you ensure customer delight, right? So a couple of things that I always recommend that we need to keep in mind is, because, search is a very pull medium, and it is definitely important for us to be always on. So that's the primary mode of, that's a primary piece that one needs to keep in mind. Have an always on campaign. And of course, once that is done, then of course, there are multiple ways in terms of, where they want to personalize the communication, how do you make the content more relevant for the consumer? How are you utilizing the 0 moment of truth for them? So these are things which will really help us in terms of engaging with the customers. And needless to say, even the positions, right? That becomes important. So it's not just your presence, but where exactly are you present, that really makes that kind of a difference. Because if you're not in the top 3 or the first page, technically, consumers tend to miss out. So how do you ensure or have a mix and match of that? And to do all of this, what we definitely recommend is doing a lot of test and learn, using a lot of A/B testings, so that what works, because there is no right or wrong method of doing something. And I guess, that's the best part about being in digital also. There are no books which have been written which share guidelines in terms of saying this is right and this is wrong. So you need to figure out your own path, and every brand is different. Every consumer is different. So personalization at scale is what is something that we are working towards.
Great. Thanks, Tanushree. I think we are short of time, so I'll end the session here. I learned a great many things from this session. Just to name a few, A, search is growing. B, it is growing equally across rural, urban, across consumer segments. At the same time, there are shifts within where search is being done. Marketplaces are definitely coming up as a destination where consumers rely heavily on search, at least from a product perspective. We also talked about the 3 Vs, voice and vernacular, very specifically, where we do see they are sizable today as well as continue to grow at a very high rate. And lastly, I think I take that point about personalization at scale very close to my heart. I think that is what really defines digital and success for marketers for digital. So thanks a lot for all those valuable insights. I'm sure all of us who attended the session are a little more enriched in our knowledge of search marketing through this short chat.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here.
Same here, Tanushree. And thanks all of you for joining us today. And I'm hoping you found the session as interesting and enriching as I did. Have a great day. Bye.